Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us, journalist and broadcaster Henry Winter and Roger Hannah, sports editor of the Scottish Sun. Welcome to you both. Let's just quickly run you through those back pages. Starting in the Sun, Šeško appeal is the back page as Manchester United target RB Leipzig forward Benjamin Šeško. Slightly different in the Scottish Sun as Jedi Gassama helps Rangers pass Panathinaikos in the second round of qualifying for this season's Champions League. Ruben Amorim say the Mirror as Ruben Amorim. Luke Shaw talks about how he has taken out the stragglers from the Manchester United squads. Into the Telegraph, Stokes despair as injury rules him out of finale. England's captain Ben Stokes won't play in the fifth and decisive Test match against India at the Oval. And similar on the back of the Times as Ben Stokes says he couldn't risk his place in this winter's Ashes by playing this week in southwest London. And something similar in the Star. Toxic waste dump. Luke Shaw salutes Ruben Amorim's clean-up job at Manchester United. As he said, there has been a toxic environment in recent seasons. And we will start with Manchester United this evening and those stories across a number of the papers, linking them with the RB Leipzig forward Benjamin Šeško. Henry Winter, we will come to you first. And it doesn't take too long to decipher why Manchester United are after a striker. Just 44 Premier League goals last season. Only Southampton, Leicester, Ipswich and Everton managed fewer. So this is a real priority for Ruben Amorim.
Well, and it's been his priority all summer. It's why he brought Matheus Cunha in to play as the sort of the left-sided 10. Brian Mbeumo obviously has come in, probably plays the right-sided 10. Interesting to see where Bruno Fernandes fits in that. But, I mean, we've seen from the start with Rasmus Højlund, he's so hard-working, but he's just not finishing off the fairly scant service that he's been getting. So Šeško appeal, as the Sun delicately put it. I mean, they're a difficult club to negotiate with. I mean, you can ask Arsenal, you can ask Newcastle, and Newcastle fans must be sort of doing their head in seeing another player that they've been linked with probably going elsewhere. But it's a sensible move by Manchester United because they absolutely need a striker. I mean, sympathy for Højlund, but he simply hasn't delivered.
It's an interesting one, isn't it, Roger, because the two players that they've been linked with, one, Benjamin Šeško, a younger player at the age of 22 with no Premier League experience. One of the other targets, reportedly across a number of papers, is Aston Villa's Ollie Watkins, who has the pedigree. He is a ready-made Premier League striker, but it might just be the structure of the payment and potentially the longevity that is attracting United to Šeško.
Without doubt, Rob. Šeško will cost more money than Watkins. He'll cost, £70 million, I would imagine. But he's 22 years of age, and I know there is this, a desire for people to be Premier League ready, like Cunha, like Mbeumo. But when you've got a talent like Šeško, even at £70 million, this will be a good deal for Manchester United. Henry says they're desperately crying out for a player of his ability, and he's a guy who could be the Manchester United centre-forward for a decade.
So the Telegraph saying United step up a pursuit of £70 million, Šeško. And it is an interesting point, Henry, that perhaps you don't need as much Premier League pedigree from a player if the two that you plan on playing in and around him, and we know Ruben Amorim wants those two number 10s, Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo, have shown that they can do it in this division before.
Absolutely, they have. And Rasmus Højlund must be looking at that and saying, well, I could actually do with a little bit of that quality of service. But if it is Šeško, and look, I mean, you can talk to anyone around Arsenal, and negotiating with Leipzig is not the easiest. And so this might run. Manchester United, understandably, don't want to be overpaying for a player. And this is probably why they withdrew from the Ollie Watkins scenario. He's only got 1 year left of his contract at Aston Villa. But also Šeško, I think, possibly offers a little bit more, though he's younger. He can play with his back to goal. He's not so much of a run-through striker as Ollie Watkins is, and they need someone to sort of knit the player and bring the number 10s in around him. But I think with Manchester United, Šeško, fantastic, get a striker, but I do think they also need a goalkeeper, and they probably need a more mobile central midfielder as well.
Part of it was the recruitment, Roger, and getting in the players that Ruben Amorim wanted to fit his very specific system. But there were also clearly some problems with the culture, with getting players out of that dressing room as well. The mirror goes with Ruben Amorim. Shaw insists ruthless style of Old Trafford boss will fix toxic atmosphere and get club back to the top. I mean, they're strong quotes from Luke Shaw. I've been here over the last few years. It's been extremely negative. It can be quite toxic, the environment. That's not healthy at all. And when you know that there are certain players who have left the club in recent weeks and those that are being made to train away from the group, it's pretty pointed from Luke Shaw too.
It really is, Robert. I think it's a really open and honest interview by Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw has seen a lot of highs and lows in his Manchester United career. He's been there a long time. You think back even to some of the personal stick he took when Jose Mourinho was manager. So for Luke Shaw to come out and speak so positively about the culture and the atmosphere that Ruben Amorim is generating this summer, and by extension, the negativity that some other players in the squad who are now out with the squad may have brought last season, that says a lot about the changes being affected by Amorim there.
Do you think that, Henry, it sort of implies that with previous managers that have come and gone, that Luke Shaw, and he probably won't be the only player who feels a bit like the tail was wagging the dog a little bit and the players had too much power in that dressing room?
I think there was an element of that. I think that the turnover, the uncertainty at boardroom level with new owners coming in. I mean, Luke Shaw is a really interesting guy, and we've all interviewed him. And as Roger says, we admire his openness. But I mean, he's not going to criticise Ruben Amorim. He's always going to sort of come down on that side. I think it's quite interesting in his interviews. He doesn't actually sort of dig out the bomb squad sort of by name. Because I imagine they're all on the same WhatsApp group, and I don't think that would go down particularly well. So I think he's been quite sensible there. And I think Manchester United fans might look at the quotes and think, well, how frustrating. We've got a fantastic elite level left back who's just simply because of injury has not been able to deliver enough for Manchester United. But look, that's through no fault of his own. I mean, he's had some horrendous injuries. But it's the mentality of some of the players. It's the lack of application. And, we can talk about bringing Šeško in, but the bomb squad has still got to be diffused. There's still 4 pretty big names which Manchester United are going to have to offload, as well as the broader issue of looking at their recruitment in and out.
And that is the thing about Ruben Amorim last season, Roger, that I think he was lauded at times for being quite upfront about what was a dire situation in terms of the results, maybe in terms of some of the characters that he did have in his dressing room. But very quickly, by the time that first game against Arsenal comes around, the pressure will be on him to start getting results, because he too was culpable for the position Manchester United eventually found themselves in.
Yeah, it was a historically bad Premier League position for Manchester United last season. They could hardly ask for a tougher start, Rob, than facing Arsenal on the opening weekend of the season in a couple of weeks' time. But he knows that the ground running. If he gets Šeško in before that first Premier League game, a front three of Cunha, Šeško and Mbeumo will give him a real chance to take United back to where he thinks they should be.
Let's stay with you, Roger, and talk about a big night for Rangers, a significant night for Russell Martin and his team to get themselves through to the next qualifying round where they'll play Victoria Pilsen. It threatened to be very nervy before JD Gassama came to the party and probably eased any concerns that any of the Rangers fans might have had about going through.
Yeah, this has been a big win for Russell Martin. It's been a really good first 10 days for Russell Martin competitively as Rangers manager. Big win last week in the first leg. They were obviously down to go 1 behind tonight. Juricic scoring for Panathinaikos. There looked as if there was going to be a wobble. And then JD Gassama off the bench, scored with his first touch, as he had almost done last week at Ibrox as well. And what a leap for the lad, 21 years of age. He only cost £2.2 million. And in the space of a couple of weeks, he's gone from crisis-torn Sheffield Wednesday to within 2 games now of the Champions League.
Henry, what do you think and what do you hope that Russell Martin might have learnt from his spell, particularly in the Premier League with Southampton?
Adapt, have a plan B. Don't be such a purist that you just don't vary your style of football. I think he's a terrific manager, and everyone wants to see him do well. But this is a huge result for him, and the resilience of the players, the character. And it's quite ironic, actually, in the day we've been discussing James Trafford going to Manchester City and Aaron Ramsdale possibly going on loan to Newcastle United and Nick Pope being linked elsewhere. It's almost like a forgotten England goalkeeper, Jack Butland, gives, a fantastic performance, particularly in the first half, to keep the Greeks at bay. So, brilliant for him. And I can't see Butland necessarily coming back into the England frame. He's got, 9 caps, not been capped since 2018. But, it just shows how the players are responding collectively and individually to Russell Martin.
The one thing you would say, though, Roger, is they've got a long way to try and catch Celtic. Celtic have proved a good chunk ahead of them in recent season. And your paper, bit of transfer news too. Brendan Rodgers talking on Sky Sports today about simple arithmetic of needing to replace some of those that they've lost, but they're moving to do that with a Manchester City youngster.
Yeah, Goosey, I think, will come in on loan in the next few days, possibly even before they start the defence of the title on Sunday afternoon. It's a position that Brendan Rodgers has long looked to fix. Cameron Carter-Vickers has been outstanding for Celtic since he came up from Tottenham, but a partner for him at centre-back,
Rodgers just been...
always been the real issue. He spent £6 million on Austin Trusty if he'll get United last summer. Didn't quite work out.
Thought we'd lost you for a moment, Roger, but you're still here. That line is holding on just for now. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we might just discuss a story in the Telegraph. There are some ambitious plans for Birmingham City back in the Championship, but that is just the start. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to journalist and broadcaster Henry Winter and Roger Hannah, sports editor of the Scottish Sun. Let's head into the Times. Ben Stokes, the feature there, says he couldn't risk his Ashes place as he doesn't feature in the deciding 5th test between England and India at the Oval, which gets underway on Thursday. And I mean, Roger, he's a fascinating player to watch and to listen to, Ben Stokes, but he throws himself into every game. And it feels like whilst he's out there, no one can stop him trying to contribute. So maybe common sense has prevailed between him and doctors and the head coach, Brendan McCullum, to say, no, enough is enough.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you have to save Ben Stokes from himself, Rob. You saw the influence he has in the team just in the last test last week, 140 with a bat, a fifer after that. He leads from the front. He's been a fantastic captain, but there is an Ashes on the horizon. He's got a nasty shoulder injury. It's something that's going to keep him out, I think, for between 6 and 10 weeks. They say I wouldn't anticipate seeing Ben Stokes again until England land on Australian soil in November. And, the Ashes is supremely important. And if you need to save Ben Stokes from himself just to get him ready for the series down under, then it'll probably be worthwhile.
And most of those bowlers, actually, Henry, in the last Test match at Old Trafford, looked on their last legs. It's been a punishing series, but you don't just lose the bowler or the batter, you lose a great fielder and you lose an inspirational leader as well for this final Test match.
It's very interesting. You can hear it on the TV. Some of his sort of sotto voce comments to teammates, whether it's Jofra Archer and its sort of intensity and energy, and you can just see it's remarkable in a 5-day test that he can be just so on point with that energy, that intensity, that concentration and that commitment. And of course, that can often come with a price. I mean, there's a Brian Robson element to him. He wants to sort of play through the pain, but sometimes the body says no. And he says he woke up the morning after the Old Trafford test and he just felt something in his shoulder, which turned out to be, I think, a sort of 3rd-degree tear. He also felt his hamstring. I think there was a groin issue as well. I mean, he is remarkable. It is like footballers as well. We have to care for these individuals who are throwing themselves into the fray time and time again. And like football, cricket, there's so many different forms of the game. There's so much intensity, and it is good that he is having this break. And I think he was going to plan a break like this anyway. But it's a pity that he's just going to have to sort of be limping around and sort of holding his shoulder, because the key thing is the Ashes. We want Stokes. England needs Stokes firing for that.
The key thing is obviously a huge series, Roger, the Ashes, but we must remember that India is a huge series as well, it was billed as a massive year for Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum, these 2 5-match series against India and England. And I suppose we can call you a neutral in this discussion as a Scotsman, that it's good that it goes to a deciding test match. England 2-1 up, with India still have the opportunity to square what's been a fascinating series. 2 evenly matched teams, a little bit of needle, a little bit of bad temper, and all to play for in southwest London.
Yeah, a fascinating series and a feisty series it's turned out as well. It's maybe the perfect preparation for the Ashes, when there's that little bit of spice thrown into it. We were always expecting a bit of spice from maybe Stokes and maybe Shubman Gill. I don't think we were expecting it from the Surrey pitch curator, but he certainly stoked it up ahead of the 5th test this week. The pictures were terrific with Gambier, the India coach, and the curator yesterday, and it's just added another layer of intrigue, another layer of spice into what has been a fascinating series. And listen, if it goes to day 5 of the 5th test, it will be a fitting conclusion one way or the other.
Just on that little tete-a-tete, Henry, over the pitch with the head of the ground staff at Surrey and Gout and Gambier, that's a bad look for India, would you say, or was he within his rights to say, we're here to train, we'll go where we want?
Well, you can see both sides, because India obviously wanted to inspect the wicket, and as you say, I love this way they're called curator. They were sort of groundsmen when I was growing up. He's not looking after the V&A museum here. It's a strip of grass, obviously incredibly important for him, and he obviously wanted to protect that. But these aren't sort of tourists or day trippers sort of turning up at the Oval for a sort of little sort of look at the outfield and the wicket. They've got every right to go and inspect it. So I have to say I can see both sides, but as Roger rightly says, it absolutely adds to the drama. And I'm certainly not a neutral in this. I absolutely want England to win, but I think it's brilliant for the whole Test cricket sphere that this game has just gone to the 5th day on each one. There've been some fantastic performances. We've mentioned Stokes, Shubman Gill, some of his batting's been incredible. We have to remember also he's a young captain and he's allowed the odd sort of mistake or two, but I just think it's been very feisty. But I think after the final day, whatever happens, whether India scramble a draw in the series, I'm sure they will all shake hands, but it'd be interesting to see if the groundsman / curator turns up.
Let's just stay with you, Henry, for the Sun. A Brady punch. Birmingham TV doc reveals Tom Brady's fears over former manager Wayne Rooney's work ethic, with a quote he talking to his business manager Ben Ravitz, saying, "I'm a little bit worried about our head coach's work ethic." To which Ravitz replies, he comes across as lackadaisical. You will have spent a lot of time with Wayne Rooney, particularly as a player with England camps. He has thrown himself into every job and difficult scenarios. Does that little exchange surprise you at all, the way that they have viewed Rooney's approach as a coach?
I think they could look at tactically and look at the results and look at 2 wins in 15 and question that. I don't think lackadaisical is something that necessarily you could throw at Wayne Rooney. I mean, we talk about players playing injured. Wayne Rooney sort of often did that. I think it's fascinating, this whole. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's a 5-part documentary because Brady's influence on Birmingham is huge. You only have to go down to the training ground, which they've invested in, just to see every room. And I went into the physio's room, the medical room, and it's just got Brady sayings all over it, sort of carpe diem, but in a sort of NFL way. And he is so strong and so huge there. He's not just a sort of silent sort of angel investor. He's very much imposing his own mentality on it. And, I don't think many athletes, many sportsmen and women can actually compare to Brady's own ferocious will to win. So possibly a little bit harsh on Rooney, but I'm sure Rooney will have a go back in his normal delicate way at some point.
It's fascinating, Roger, that these 2 teams who have come up from League One and could conceivably be in the mix again for championship promotion with famous owners or part owners in Tom Brady with Birmingham, Ryan Reynolds obviously, and Rob McElhenney with Wrexham. But regardless of who you have in your boardroom, you need someone good in the dugout, and someone who those in Scottish football know pretty well. Chris Davies, in his first job in management last season with Birmingham, did an outstanding job. As financially backed as they were, they absolutely cruised League One.
Yeah, and you've still got to win the games, whether you've got the financial backing or not, Rob. And Chris did a fantastic job. He learned his trade under Brendan Rodgers and Ange Postecoglou, and he's been backed in terms of finance, but also every other facet of the club. You know, Tom Brady speaks. No one had a greater work ethic than Tom Brady. To win all those Super Bowls, to succeed in the culture that Bill Belichick had at the New England Patriots. I think Brady himself having his statue unveiled next week in Foxborough. That tells you the impact that he made. And when you have that success in elite sport, if you go into another sport, you expect everyone to have the same standards, the same work ethic, the same desire and ambition that you had in your career. And those are the things, the principles that Tom Brady's trying to lay down for Chris Davies and the players at Birmingham.
Let's head inside the Telegraph. James Stucker's story. David Moyes says, we're desperate to bring in new blood, but the clock is ticking. David Moyes has become increasingly desperate in the transfer window, with time running out to bolster the squad. Henry did such a great job when he came in last season, given the excitement of the new stadium as well. Are you surprised at all that Everton are struggling to attract the right calibre of players?
A little bit, because all you've got to do is take them to the new stadium and say, do you want to play here? I mean, it's a magnificent stadium. I'm sure you've seen it. They've gradually been ramping up the events there. I mean, it's going to host games at the next Euros over here, ahead of Anfield. So I mean, it's should be a sort of no-brainer for some players. I can understand, because of some of the narrative around Everton Football Club, in terms of the issues that they've been through and sort of flirting with relegation. But David Moyes is a successful manager, very persuasive individual, very charismatic individual. They've got good players there. They've got England's #1 goalkeeper. They've got some good young players. I would have thought now is the time to be going to Everton. So I can understand their frustration. And I imagine it's compounded because, a mile or so away, Liverpool are doing such great business.
Let's just finish with a selection for the final Lions test the weekend, Roger, and a chance of another Scot coming into the starting 15. Blair Kinghorn lined up to start on the wing. And the Scots have played their part in the series so far.
Yeah, we like to think so. I think it's Sione Tuipulotu scored in the first test. Hugh Jones got a crucial try in the second test victory at the weekend. And Kinghorn's been unfortunate. He missed the start of the tour. He missed the game against the Pumas in Dublin. He was winning the top 14 in France with his club Toulouse. Came a bit late to the party, then got injured, missed the chance of the fullback role in the first test. Hugo Keenan's been terrific, scored a series-winning try at the MCG at the weekend. But Kinghorn probably merits his chance. I would imagine it might be James Lowe that drops out to make way for him. And if you look at Finn Russell at 10, maybe Tuipulotu and Jones in the midfield again, and Kinghorn in one wing, I think the Scots probably have played their part.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your company this evening. We've gone through a number of sports and topics there. Great to have you with us. And a quick reminder that if you missed any of the show, there's a chance to see back pages tonight at hour. And also, the show is available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So join us on Thursday night. Our guest Jonathan Liu of The Guardian and Ihsan Khan of The Daily Mail as well.